Welcome back to Autism at Home, brought to you by us at Early Autism Project Malaysia through our non-profit initiative, The Hope Project. My name is Joshebet Isaacs and it's so nice to see you again, and I'm here today with Yu Chen, one of our senior supervisors at EAP.
Welcome to our 20th Autism at Home series on community trips. We started this series with an introduction to community trips. Then in the subsequent lessons, we broke down the guidelines for eating out, grocery shopping, going to the mall, as well as going to the playgrounds, then going to the cinema. In this lesson, we will be talking all about going to the doctors.
The reality is all children need to be prepared to go to the doctors, be it for general checkups and vaccinations, or in the event they are unwell or worse in an emergency situation.
And at the doctors, there are certain expectations that a child needs to be able to cope with, most of which come back to the 5 community skills which we have been covering in the last few lessons. The ability to cooperate, the ability to be flexible, the ability to tolerate, two-way communication, as well as the ability to learn the actual expectations.
Let's start this time with the ability to tolerate. Children with autism can be sensitive to bright lights, loud sounds, crowds, but also new places and new people. Additionally, some of our kiddos may have had multiple experiences with doctors and hospitals and therefore have developed an aversion to them and may totally react and demonstrate avoidance behaviors, be it closing their ears, eyes, refusing to get down from the car, go into the clinic, or even have other meltdown behaviors. So we therefore will need to teach our kiddos how to tolerate doctors as well as clinics.
Then, the ability to cooperate includes the ability to stay with adults throughout the treatment, specifically stay seated, and the ability to follow the doctor's instruction. Specifically sitting through the stethoscope check, checking the ears, opening their mouths to say ah, to check their throats.
Then being flexible generally involves being able to cope with having to wait in the waiting room for their turn to be examined by the doctor. Cope with changes like if they're asked to go to a different room or see a different doctor or nurse, as well as cope not getting their way or what they want.
All this is why two-way communication is so important. When an effective communication method is utilized and your child is able to have a better understanding of the expectations, then challenging behaviors are reduced. Additionally, providing your child with a way to communicate to you for help, a break, a snack, etc. increases their confidence to be able to communicate their needs as well.
Then of course, mapping out the actual expectations. For a general checkup, from a child transitioning into the doctor's clinic, waiting nicely at the waiting area, sitting down cooperatively so the doctor can do their check, and then tolerating any treatment that may need to be given, followed by waiting outside for their parents to collect the medications and then to make the payments.
So those are the 5 key community skills that a child needs to be able to have in order to have a successful trip to the doctors. And each of those areas may need to be strengthened at home through specifically teaching your child each of those skills, also known as teaching strategies. You can always go back and revisit the previous series on Autism at Home, specifically the starter kit, which is Unit 1 to 5 on the basic teaching strategies and also covers Unit 4 on cooperation and Unit 5 on communication, Unit 7 on flexibility, as well as Unit 10 on following instructions, Unit 14 on safety, and Unit 15 on building tolerance. And of course, we will always remind you with all your treating strategies to keep to the 3 key ABA strategies, which are break skills down, pair with reinforcement, and provide sufficient practice. And do remember that we want to focus 90% of our efforts and energy on teaching and preventative strategy and only 10% on reactive strategy. So now, let's dive into the preventative strategies. With P for preventative, there are 5 P's to follow. Planning your trip, prepare your child, practice at home, pack your bag, and prepare for the worst.
First is planning for the trip. We want to try our best to set our child up for success. And that includes choosing the right clinic and doctor who is able to make the necessary accommodations. This could mean starting with a smaller and less crowded clinic before increasing the demands to a more crowded clinic, in anticipation especially of an emergency situation which may happen at a peak period. Some other additional factors would be great plus points for the clinic would be easy to get to from the car park. Maybe they have individual treatment rooms or even a calming room like Hospital Tunku Aziza to see the doctor, if there's possibility of that special adjustment of lighting and soundproofing if necessary. Many clinics offer children's toys and activities, and some hospitals may even allow for special meals if your child needs to be admitted. However, even just the option of bringing your own food will be great. You could also start practices to visit the doctor with a much shorter duration. Thereafter, increase the duration for the visit until your child is able to complete a full treatment at the preferred clinic. It may also be beneficial to speak to the clinic staff about your child's special needs and the practices you will be running. Remember that you could also seek their assistance in advance in the event that you need any support. They may be able to offer a minimal waiting period before seeing a doctor. We would also recommend finding a pediatrician who is fun, builds rapport well with children, and has some experience with children on the spectrum as well. Their clinics may already have lots of reinforcing toys as well, such as rewards like stickers or a bowl of sweets to choose from. As your child shows continuous success, gradually increase the demands for your child, such as a longer visit to the doctor, increasing the treatment expectations, and also more peak time period. As your child shows continuous success, gradually increase the demands for your child, such as longer visits to the doctor, increasing the treatment expectations, and also increasing the peak time period. In the event your child finds a particular step too challenging, it's completely fine to go back a few steps and then to restart from there.
Next is to prepare your child. This is the part where two-way communication is important. As noted in previous lessons, it is crucial to ensure your communication to your child is as clear as possible and in a way that your child understands. Let's do a quick pop quiz. Which of these can be an effective tool of communication to your child? A social story, a storybook, a visual schedule, a token board? The answer in this question are A, C, and D. Additionally, you could also consider using a visual rule card, which can also be used to communicate the expectation of staying together, listening to parents' instruction, and having nice hands, as well as, of course, a video model.
Thirdly, practice at home. You can simulate a clinic at home, especially if some children have negative associations with doctors and need to be desensitized. You can read the social story and then have a toy doctor set out on the table and probe a bit of how much your child is able to tolerate and participate in some doctor pretend play. To take it a step further would be to read the social story, show the visual schedule, and follow all the steps of going to the doctors. And do remember to use the rule card and token board to reinforce as well. And if there is a specific area that is more difficult for your child to cope with, for example, not being able to tolerate the stethoscope or not being able to open their mouth to say ah, then we would need to teach those specific instructions at home as well. And of course, one area that every child struggles with, vaccinations, or in recent cases, nasal swab tests and worse, IV drips. Again, we can try to practice these at home in a pretend manner, but in the real situation, as with all children, we may need to just hold down our child. Remember that the whole point of these proactive strategies is to actually set your child up for success and to build a tolerance and strength in foundational skills at home first, before practicing in the real situation in the community.
Fourthly, pack your bag. As usual, the standard backpack a child needs to bring includes snack, water bottle, a change of clothes, sanitizer or wet wipes, and of course activities to occupy your child and to redirect as well. The bag should be labeled clearly in case it gets lost or in case your child gets lost also. Do put an ID tag on your own child too for extra precaution. Then of course, the usual visuals for communication, which would include social story, visual schedule, visual rules and token board, as well as packs for requesting. Additionally, though for going to the doctors, you may need a much stronger reward and some special calming toys like a soft toy or even a noise cancellation headphones or a blanket.
Lastly, prepare for the worst. Now, what's the worst that could happen when you take your child to see a doctor? It may be unlikely for them to get lost, as they may likely stick by your side 24/7 through the trip, as they are unwell most of the time. The worst may just be your child becoming too ill that they require an emergency medical attention. Behaviorally, your child may get annoyed with the waiting, having to cope with the crowd and noise, and meeting the actual expectations at the clinic, and that is getting the treatment that they need. And of course, if it's more challenging areas such as vaccinations, nasal swab tests or IV drips, this may require us to hold on tightly to our child.
As best as you can, try to prevent any other unnecessary behaviors from taking place. Seeing that emergency rooms can get crowded no matter which clinic or hospital you choose, it will be advisable to always make sure you have someone with you, maybe your partner, a family member, a sibling, a relative, or anyone else who you would know your child's needs. Additionally, we would recommend calling the clinic or hospital in advance to inform them of your child's arrival and that they will need some special arrangement. And in the event your child is already engaging in a tantrum or they are in constant pain, you can alert the medical staff about this so that they can possibly prepare to attend your child in advance.
You may also want to perhaps give your consent for your child to be sedated only if this is medically appropriate for your child based on the doctor's recommendation upon examining your child. This is especially if there's been a bad accident and your child is injured, bleeding, or possibly a fracture. In these circumstances, sedation may be necessary in order for the doctors to attend to your child immediately. Also, in the event of a medical emergency, you may not have the time to pack their bag of activities and rewards before rushing to the hospital. So proactively, you can consider preparing a ready-to-go bag on standby at home. Reactively, you may just be able to use your phone for your child to engage in when they need to, while they're getting the medical treatment required.
Okay, now the 10% of the reactive strategies. This can be limited for you in some cases, especially emergency cases. But if you're only visiting the clinic to build your child's practices, the reactive strategies recommended will be similar to the ones recommended in the previous lessons. If your child starts wanting to run off from you, use the visual rule card to remind them of the expectations. If your child refuses to do a current step of the practice, consider moving a few steps back in your plan and reattempt. If your child starts throwing tantrum and screaming and starts getting difficult to manage, you will need to pick him up, place him safely in the car seat with the seat belt on, and then head home. When you do get home, get another family member to help you take your child in and take a breather. Once you have calmed down, debrief with your family members on what happened before the first behavior was observed and what escalated it. Then plan to reattempt the practices at a later time.
Also, a few more tips. Even as you have broken down the steps, don't forget that ABA strategy number 2 is reinforcement. So it'd be recommended to identify and utilize natural reinforcement as best as you can. For example, if you take your child to see a doctor at a clinic, which happens to be located next to an ice cream shop, you might just have the perfect natural reinforcement you can use, provided your child loves, not just likes the ice cream. Or as mentioned earlier, screen time may be a great reward too. I recall my pediatrician when I was a child having so many toys on his table and even a bottle of Sugu sweets. And so as I was playing with the toys, before I knew it, he'd already given me my vaccination.
Lastly, ABA strategy number 3 is practice. Remember to always ensure that any skill you want your child to work on requires frequent practices. You could practice doctor play at home daily, and you could even visit the doctor's office weekly if the clinic is available, and understand that you're trying to build your child's tolerance, comfort level, and positive association. Our Unit 16 on the Daily Guide provides the guidelines you can follow on how to include practices within your daily routines at home with your child based on their age group.
Now it's your turn. Find a clinic or a hospital near your house that would be able to meet some of the criteria mentioned earlier, and you can find out if they're able to make any of the necessary accommodations. Then start to go through the 5 P's of planning your trip, preparing your child, practicing at home, packing your bag, and preparing for the worst. Additionally, do check if there's any of the following 5 key community skills that your child needs to work on in a more broken down way at home, be it cooperation, flexibility, tolerance, two-way communication, as well as understanding the actual expectations.
Well, that's it for this lesson on going to the doctors. In the next and final lesson of this series, we'll be talking about going to the dentist. Stay tuned! Thank you for your support, and with the amount of interest we have received online, we have actually started providing online services and currently work with clients in other states of Malaysia, New Zealand, Philippines, Singapore, Switzerland, Indonesia, China, and Brunei as well. So do scan this QR code and get in touch with us for more information.
And if you haven't already, do check out our free online resource platform, Autism at Home, which has all the corresponding articles and downloadables for you. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Instagram and Facebook to stay updated. Thank you for watching, and we will see you soon.